Okay, we are here with the videos finally, and I know you all have been waiting for these. I apologize. I have been trying to contact the author and trying to contact the publisher to see if there's any other methods that I can use to integrate these videos into the course room without having to videotape the videotape. However, there isn't, so I'm just going to go ahead each week and kind of create these on my own. So at least we will have all these wonderful sessions to look at, and you will be able to see exactly what a session looks like, how that rapport is developed, and really look at how different methods of psychotherapy kind of unfold. So let's look at the intake session, and let's kind of be mindful of what's going on between the therapist and the client.
I'm Jerry Corey, and I'm the author of your textbook, Theory and Practice of Counseling and Psychotherapy. And I'd like to give you a quick overview of this program. You'll be seeing about 13 different sessions. The first session is primarily an intake session. The last session is a exit session and a termination session. In between, you'll be seeing 11 different theories, all of which are covered in separate chapters in your textbook. And there's a case of Stan that runs through the entire book. In the first chapter, you'll see Stan's history, an intake, key themes that he's struggled with, and his autobiography. And in the last chapter, the entire chapter is devoted to my integrative approach in working with Stan, from the beginning to the end, and how I try to pull all the theories together. The 11 theories you'll be seeing, you're just going to see a sample of me working with each specific theory, and I'll be thinking of a few techniques for each of the problems that Stan will be role-playing. So again, I want you to know this is a role-playing scenario, but hopefully you'll be able to get a sense of the differences between the theories. Now, I'd like to add that you're going to see a lot in common among these theories too, that there are some common denominators that unite the theories. So you may see similarities amongst the theories as well as differences. I'm hoping that you'll be sure to read the chapter prior to watching the video segments. I think it'll make it a lot more meaningful to you if you've read the case of Stan from each theory to see how each theorist would work differently. This is an introduction to the very first session you'll be seeing, and it's no particular theory. What we're going to be demonstrating is an intake session. And what I'd like you to assume is that this is the second session, that we already had a session the prior week, and I'm following up with Stan, who's role-playing these themes, more information about how to get the most from this particular therapy session. You'll also see that I'm trying to create a relationship. I think that regardless of what theory we work with, that the therapeutic relationship is probably the most important determinant of successful outcomes in therapy. So during this session, I'm trying to establish a collaborative partnership where we're both working towards Stan's goals, and Stan will be identifying some of the things he wants from the session. So the way you'll see each of these clips is there'll be a brief introduction, a counseling session, and then a process commentary after each of these sessions. So Stan, this is your second session, and we had an intake session last week, and we're going to be continuing what we were doing last week from this week. How is it to come back today?
Well, I'm a little nervous, actually. I'm thinking about it all week, coming back here today, and I don't know, we talked about so much stuff last week. You asked me so many questions, and I've been thinking, gosh, do you know what's wrong with me? When I come in, am I going to find out what my problem is? And it kind of, I don't know, makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, and we did cover a whole lot last week. Not only did we talk about why you were here and what it was like to come here, and started to work on some goals, but there were many things we had to talk about, like confidentiality and informed consent. So I realized that could be a little bit overwhelming at times.
Yeah, well, that stuff isn't so much, I don't think that's what's really getting to me. It's kind of, I'm wondering what we're going to do now. I'm going to come in and we're going to talk, and I just don't know how that's going to really make anything better. And I'm really wondering, if you know what's going on with me.
Yeah. Well, I think talking for some people is new, and sometimes it helps just to hear your voice or to have somebody else listen to you.
Okay. So, what do you want me to do?
Well, one thing, I gave you some material last week about counseling, informed consent brochure, and I asked you maybe you could look it over and see if you had questions. I want to be sure that you know what we're doing here and how we're working here. And any questions you have at all about how we work, what your job is, my job is, I really want to have us talk about that.
Okay. Well, the way I was thinking about it was that I would come in, talk to you about some things, and then maybe you could tell me where I need to go or what I need to do next, and then I would do those things. And the papers you gave me seem pretty straightforward, and so I'm ready to do whatever it is that you need me to do.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're kind of making me almost the expert, and that I'll have answers. And I hope you heard last week, but I want to reinforce that this week, that this will be a collaborative piece of work. We'll really be working as a partnership here.
Okay. So what do you need me to do then?
I'm going to take a lot of my clues from you in terms of what you think you want and where you're struggling in your life. So, each session I'll be asking you to think about what it is you might want. So you be asked to do some reflection after each session.
Okay.
How does that sound?
I can do that. I can do that.
Yeah. A few minutes ago you said you were nervous when we started and anxious. Where are you with that at this moment?
Still a little nervous, but it's getting better. I think the more that we talk, I kind of start to relax a little bit. I remember last week I was really nervous, but by the end I felt pretty good.
Right. And do you have any sense of what your nervousness might be about?
Well, kind of hard to say. I think one thing that I'm nervous about is I don't know what you're going to find out about me, what you're going to learn about me, and how I'm going to be able to, react or respond to that. I don't know, maybe I'm a little afraid that I'm going to find something out about myself that I don't like.
Yeah. I imagine that could be a bit scary.
Yeah, I'm kind of worried about that. I'm worried that there's something really wrong with me and I'm not going to be able to do anything about it.
And maybe there's another side of that too. You might find some things about you that you didn't know that are surprises in a pleasant way too.
Maybe. I never thought of it like that.
And it could be the other way too. You might discover things that maybe you wished weren't part of you. If that happened, do you think you'd feel free about talking about that in here?
I think I could certainly. I'd be willing to tell you if something wasn't easy for me. I might need some help though, because I've never done this before, and I still don't know how to do it the right way.
Right. One of the things we want to do in this session is talk about goals, what you hope to accomplish in this endeavor here. And this is a continuation, as I said, of the assessment process. So Is there one thing that comes to mind that you'd really like to work on in this?
Gosh, we talked about so much last week. I think it's hard to choose one thing. But if I had to, I would think I would just like to feel better about myself, less nervous all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I find myself just being nervous about almost everything, about school, about what I'm going to do when I'm out of school, about approaching women, which is really makes me really nervous. So I think I'd like to feel less nervous. I mean, even now I'm nervous. I'd like to feel less nervous now, even.
Right. So this is kind of a sample of how you are out in your real world.
Yes.
Nervous about everything.
Uh-huh.
So we shouldn't be surprised that you're nervous here.
I imagine not, yeah.
But one thing I hope we could do is it might be different. You could talk about that. That's what I hope we would do. You would talk about what's going on for you. Talk about your anxiety.
Mm-hmm. You mean right now? Right now or out there?
In all of our sessions. Whenever you're aware of feeling anxious, I think that would be a good place to talk. And a very good place to begin. How does that sound to you?
Yeah, I could do that.
Mm-hmm. And you said you just like not to be quite so anxious about everything. You listed a whole, we don't have to do it all in one session. We have maybe 12, 13 sessions together. Mm-hmm. So there'll be an opportunity, I think, at different points to take each one of these themes in your life that you're struggling with.
Okay.
So sometimes I think people think, oh my gosh, I have to do everything at once.
So taking it small, kind of little chunks maybe.
Yeah.
I think I can...
I think it's those small steps, particularly if you can initiate those steps, they're going to make a difference in here.
Okay.
Did you have any questions at all about how we work in here, what we'll be doing? Was there anything there that you wanted to ask questions about?
Well, it seems like you kind of answered some of them. I kind of thought that you'd tell me what to do, and I would just go do it, and I hear you tell me that that's not really the way it's going to work.
Well, that would be simple. Sometimes I wish I could, but I don't have those answers that quickly, And even if I did, I think that would be short-sighted in some ways, because then every time you had new problems, you'd have to come back and wait for the answer from me. So I'm hoping what we can do here is that with us talking together, you might see more clearly some things you want to do.
Yeah. Just kind of hard to think that I would be able to come up with something like that. That's all.
Like that?
I haven't been able to do that up till now, and so I don't know how I'm going to do that while we're, with you and me talking.
Right. Yeah. Well, you can always say that even. You can say, I don't know where to go next.
Okay. Might hear that a lot from me then.
That's all right.
Okay.
That's all right. So I just hope you'll talk out loud, too, in these sessions. Mm-hmm. But I think I want to get across the point that this will be a lot of hard work for both of us. That there'll be a lot expected outside of the sessions, too. You'll need to...
What do you mean by that?
Well, I'll be asking you to think of what you can do when you leave the office each week to kind of further work on what we talk about in here. Sort of like homework.
Okay.
Only we'll devise the homework together.
Okay, good. I think having something to do will be helpful.
Right. And always a suggestion I'll try to get from you. Like, what would you like to do more of in your life? Well, we're almost to an end in this session. Mm-hmm. How has it been to be here today, the second time?
Pretty good. I feel less nervous than I did before when I first came in. Still not so sure about everything, but I'm willing to give it a try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's good. You'll give it a try. And would you be willing to talk out loud about how that try is working?
Sure.
Yeah, I hope hope you would be willing to talk about what you're getting or not getting from these sessions too. I think that would be very important. So if you don't see yourself going the place you'd like to, that's certainly something we could talk about in here.
Okay.
So next week, maybe you could be thinking about what particular issue you'd want to focus in on that day. Okay?
Okay, so come in with something to kind of to talk about for that day?
Mm-hmm. Because sometimes clients wait and they want me to bring up the topic.
Okay.
And I think it would be a lot more meaningful if you were to come in and say, this is one thing I know I'd like to talk about.
Okay. Well, I know I want to talk about being nervous all the time. That's one thing I definitely know that I want to talk about. So.
Right. And maybe you could even pay attention to that throughout the whole week in terms of your nervousness each week in different situations. And you can certainly talk about your nervousness in here.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll see each other next week then.
Thanks.
You just saw the second intake session with Stan, assuming that we had 2 sessions, and you noticed that Stan was somewhat anxious about being here, and I think that's fine. I mean, maybe we should almost expect that in some ways. What I think was good about Stan is he actually brought up his nervousness, and he's willing to talk about it, you see, and he then would not be quite as overwhelmed by his anxiety. One of the things he was telling me in this second assessment session is that he's anxious about so many things in his real life. And so this session is mirroring that anxiety. So again, I'm really getting him to talk more about, well, what perhaps makes him anxious in here. I also want Stan to have an opportunity to ask any and all questions that he has about how we will work together. So I gave him some informed consent material the week before, asked him to read it and come back with questions. And one of his questions was, well, are you going to be answering my questions? Maybe I'll give you my problems and then you'll tell me what to do. And I really wanted from the outset to let Stan know that I don't have that kind of power or wisdom, for that matter, that together we would be working to help him get more clarity on his life and to work towards his goals. That's what I think is really important, that Stan identifies where he's having difficulty in his life and that in our sessions he will bring up those areas to talk about. So I think the foundational work during the assessment and the intake sessions are so critical. And I don't see informed consent as just a legal thing that we have to get through. That's not it so much. I see informed consent as really the basis for starting a quality therapeutic relationship.
Okay, and you'll notice there's 3 questions here. I don't know if you can read them that good from this camera, but 1, what did you find most interesting in this session and why? So these are questions just to kind of ponder. 2, if you were counseling Stan from this particular theoretical framework, what is one additional technique you might use? What would you hope to accomplish with this intervention? And 3, if you were the client, how would you be likely to respond to the therapist, Jerry's comments, and interventions in this particular session? So the one thing that we want to look at when we review these sessions is we want to try to look at how would I feel if I was the client and how would I feel if I was the therapist. So a lot of times, even as the therapist, we have to understand that the client is feeling a lot of different things, might be anxious, might actually be excited to be there. So we have to understand that they come with their own type of feelings and their own set of thoughts too and preconceived notions. Okay, so I hope this will help you a little bit on your assignments and just to give you a perspective of how a counselor starts to build that rapport. So I will see you in the think tank.